In 1808, when slavery was outlawed in America, the importation, not the trade, but the importation. So from 1808 to 1865, the end of the Civil War, they simply stopped importing the slaves, and they created breeding farms where they would find a black man called a buck, and they would find about a dozen black women called you-know-what sisters. And they would put y'all in these houses, and the job of the man was to impregnate the woman and produce more slaves for the system to exploit for financial gain. Well, guess what? Some of us are still, some of our homes right now.
Whoa. I wasn't even recording this for this purpose. But if you look up derogatory terms for black people, right? And you read the Wikipedia page, I know you'll have tons of criticism. I brought up Wikipedia. Just do what I say here on this one, right? Read the Wikipedia page. When you get to buck, it's going to say slang for Native Americans and black people. So think about what he just said. You take a young buck, which you know that's still slang in our people's terminology, especially in South Carolina, where I was just at, you know, I can speak for that for a fact. A young buck, an American Indian, with this woman, right? Keep breeding slaves, right? Because the condition of the mother in their system is the condition they go by. So if the mother was a slave, they didn't have to go out and find the mother. They went out and found the Indian. So they take his heritage, right? They're taking his heritage. They're taking the possession of the land from his father's, what was supposed to be his, putting it in this woman, and then taking that and saying, okay, now you cannot no longer continue your inheritance to this land. We got it because we own the mother, and whatever she produces now is ours.
In Tacoma are breeding farms for white supremacy.
That's right.
If you raising a child with no discipline, you have a breeding farm. That ain't no home. You are doing nothing but producing lives for white supremacy to ruin.
Oh, then think about who pushes that concept the most, right? Democratic liberals. We promise we'll give you anything and everything you want. Just vote for us. Don't matter what we're doing behind the scenes and the broken promises we have. As long as we give you some of these things, these little trinkets here and there to keep you satisfied just enough. Think about it. You're going through a pandemic for like the second year so far, so-called, right? Joe Biden, right, ran on free healthcare for all. How many lives would he have saved if he would have got in office and made sure free healthcare for all was the first thing he did? No, instead he's got his agenda. He's got his pockets being stuffed by Big Pharma, who is owned by what? The Rothschilds. Listen to Estes Mullins, his videos on the books that he found by journalists who studied when in America medicine went from pathogenic and holistic terms to this pharmaceutical, is when the Rothschilds sent out their agents like JP Morgan to see how medicine was working so they can learn how to tackle that. And now everything has to have a license on it. And remember, if it has to have a license, that means you're doing something that was illegal before. You're doing something that was not illegal before, but is now illegal. For instance, you have the right to travel, right? It's constitutionally given to you. It's the freedom the Most High gave you when he gave you two legs that function, right? They turn around and say, no. Let's take your constitutional right and let's put a license on it and a number to go with it, right? And then sell it back to you, make you buy that right, and call it driving. And when I mean buy, you pay for that license when you pass your driver's test, right? So now you're paying for your right, which is against the law. It goes against the Constitution. Thank you, Michigan, for starting this.
Listen, the number one responsibility of a black parent raising a black child, especially a boy, is to teach that boy discipline. Discipline. If your son don't have discipline, white supremacy is waiting to swallow him up. Discipline is what he needs. And what is my definition of discipline? The ability to make yourself do what you don't feel feel like doing, but it gotta be done whether you like it or not. If your son is not that, if he understands that, he is not coming. My single mothers.
Man, that's what I was recording for, because I wanted to share this with my wife. Because man, we get into these. I mean, I was raised by a man that served in the Air Force. He brought those values home, raised us with them. So I'm raising my sons with them as best I can. But it's like, it's a fight, you know, because like the wife's like, I don't feel like it today. I don't feel like, and it's like, no, these boys need to learn. This is the steps. Every day they get up, their bed's got to be made. Every day they get up, they got to change their clothes, take a shower or whatnot, change their clothes. Every day I wash laundry. They're going to get out here. They're going to help fold them. They're going to put these things away. Top drawer, you know, your whites, your underwear, middle drawer, your shirts, bottom drawer, your shorts, your pants, coats in the closet, on the hangers, you know, like it's just, you know, oldest one, help with the dishes, you know, middle one, you know, you're going to help clean the bathroom today, you know, the youngest ones, you pick up everything off the floor, you know, it's because it's been a whole thing with us where every day I come home from work after working overnight, the house is a mess, you know, and then I'm like, yo, how is this so hard? The wife's like, I don't understand why we're going to clean it up if it's just going to be a mess the next day. That's why I was recording this, because I wanted to show her that. But when I listened to it again while recording this, I was like, whoa, we know what the word buff means, you know. And that's where it just started, the wheels started turning in my mind, you know, started getting a little different. But that's what I'm always about too. I feel like we don't read the book of Psalms because I feel the book of Psalms teaches our people discipline. I don't feel like we read the book of Proverbs enough, because the book of Proverbs teaches our people discipline, not only physical discipline, but mental discipline. I feel like that's one of the things that we are always lacking. Our people are known for emotions. And it's funny because when I try to talk to them about the stuff that I've learned or the stuff that I'm researching, I always got to tell them, and this, I don't have to tell this to white folks, I don't have to tell this to Hispanics, nobody else. I always got to tell about black folks though. Take the emotion out of it and listen to what I'm saying. I got to repeat myself there. And I feel like we're not emotionally disciplined. I'm not saying be dead. I'm saying know how to function and reason with the information. Because there's a purpose for us being as emotional as we are. And I'm not saying get rid of that. I'm saying, like in the Jedis, we got to learn to control that. That's why I feel like our people need to be reading the book of Proverbs, the wisdom of Solomon. You know, me, I don't push it, but you guys know how I feel about Asia. I felt that our people, you know, there was evidence that our people were over there and it was being ignored, you know. So I'm always like, you know, looking into that. And as I was looking into it, I learned more about Angkor Wat. I learned more about the Buddhas, and, you know, and so I took up reading the Dharma, you know, and it's like they call the dual verses. They show you the positive side of doing what this says, or the negative side of doing what it says. You know, I read the last Black Buddha of Japan, you know, and I read what he wrote to his disciples, and some of that stuff sticks with me. Like, for instance, you know, he talks about how young man, how to beat lust, right? I'm like, oh, this is good, right? You know, because I'm a married man, you know, and marriage is going to be for a long time, right? Until I die, whenever that is. So it's like, all right, there's a good way to train myself to make sure I don't slip up or put myself in positions to slip up, you know? And he's like, when you look at a woman that you find attractive, start imagining her with the most grotesque things, feces, whatever it is you can think of on her face, and without hair and all this other stuff. Just imagine it almost looking like a swamp monster, you know, but with boils and stuff like that, pus just coming out of, and it will immediately, you know, if you practice that, you start to actually see yourself, you know, going, hey, this works. So the battle is in the mind in some situations, you know, and those are the ones you feel good about, as you feel like, hey, I'm making strides to overcome that stuff. But what I wanted to get to, and I just don't know where it's at, is where Dr. Umar Johnson starts talking about how they're going to end in-person learning. And when they end the in-person learning, it's to usher in charter schools. But when they usher in the charter schools, those charter schools are going to be brought about as, oh, these are great. Look at the test scores. Look how well they're doing. But it's really harmful for young black males. And eventually you're you're going to put them in a situation where you have a whole young youth that are not being educated because they can't go to public schools because they ended him, that. And if the parents aren't homeschooling at home, who's going to be educating these young youth? And it's going to cause a huge gap in those that could afford and those that did get the grades to go to charter schools and to continue their education from the generation that was kicked out of it. And I'm looking at what's going on right now with this whole pandemic. And, once again, vitamin D deficiency season is here, which they call flu season, but really it's vitamin D deficiency. That's why it's every fall, right? Less vitamin D from the sun, you get sick. And here it is. They're saying, the COVID numbers are going back up. Well, no, duh. Your immune system's weak because it's not getting the proper vitamin D that it needs, right? So they're like, in Michigan, we're going to only have 4 school days and, or we're going to have 4 school days and most of the school learning is just going to be, what is it? I'm sorry. Yeah. 4 school days and one day of learning online. And they're like, because this one day, Friday, if we keep you home, it'll help stop the spread of COVID, right? No, they're working out the kinks to make sure your children are on online learning. Who benefits from that? Microsoft, right? The big tech companies, Bill Gates, right? Because he's getting paid still for everybody having a Microsoft device, So, I mean, America's biggest farmer is still finding a way to make sure he keeps his thumb on everybody, right? And, his global masters that he's working for. And then you think about this too, right? What you're watching is the 4th Industrial Revolution. Well, let me better yet, I'll show you.
Fair use. Fair use. Fair use.
Called the 4th Industrial Revolution, which became a global norm for various industrial changes. And you even chose this term as the main theme for 2016 World Economic Forum. So now, under current pandemic situation, what impact did COVID-19 have on the 4th Industrial Revolution, and how should countries or companies should respond to it?
Something that just came to mind. What I ought to do is go back and look in time and see during major pandemics, major pandemics, and see if they've used this before to usher in industrial revolutions. What major world-stopping, catastrophic, we're all gonna die event did they pull up to usher in the new industrial phases? Because this almost reminds me of the Fourth Reich.
That's an excellent question. As a reminder, my notion and my book of the 4th Industrial Revolution is that the innovations we are seeing today in terms of artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, cloud computing, advanced robotics, and many others, together constitute a new phase.
Wow, what a pair of jerks. I was trying to use subtitles to, clarify his thick accent, and look, they give us Asian writing, Sanskrit. Are you serious?
In human development, on par or even exceeding previous industrial revolutions in scale and impact. COVID-19, if anything, has accelerated this ongoing industrial revolution. If COVID had happened even 10 years ago, we could not have imagined moving entire companies, schools, and government offices.
See, there it is. If COVID-19 would have happened 6 years ago, they could not have imagined moving forward as fast as they are with the fourth industrial revolution, right? This This is a perfect opportunity, right? What is it saying? Don't let a good oh, I can't think of it. It's like, don't let a good crisis go to waste, right? There they are doing it again. And you hear them, they're just bragging about it. This right here is great for us. We're moving along with our agenda.
Fast online. Today, that is a reality. The fourth industrial revolution has become a reality. Not just for the pioneers, but for a broad range of people and workers. We are also seeing macroeconomic consequences, changes. Big tech companies such as Apple, Samsung, Alphabet, Amazon, or Facebook already are among the largest global companies, but the last months have further cemented their leading positions in the market, while others have started to lag further behind. That will prove to be not only the case now, but will be a permanent consequence of COVID-19. But these past few months have also shown that the fourth industrial revolution will not be beneficial to all unless we make conscious choices and investments to ensure that this is the case. Disadvantaged schools.
Right there. The COVID passports, right? They won't serve anybody, right? You heard what he's saying. They won't serve anybody unless they get a large majority of the people card-carrying vaccine passport members, right? It's just like what's going on in Australia. They say, they're close to, they're close to well over 67% of the population vaccinated. So now they've they've locked anyone in their homes that are not vaccinated. And they've already started we're moving people away from hospitals that are COVID positive, and we're moving them to treatment camps, they call them, which is internment camps.
Students, unskilled workers, and non-digitized companies and governments will feel the crisis much more than others.
Oh, you hear that? Non-digital schools, companies, corporations are going to feel this effect worse than others. So they're telling you, you want to make it into the next era, go digital. Get yourself a digital wallet, right? Make sure all your information is easy access. It's going to make your life more convenient.
Both corporate and income inequality have worsened during the last months. So when we build the post-COVID world, when we do the Great Reset, one of the most important places to start will be to ensure that the fruits of the fourth industrial revolutions are really shared by all. It starts.
Did you hear what he said? The first thing they got to do is make sure the food is really shared by all. Is that what Bill Gates is up to, being the world's, I keep saying the world, being the United States' largest landowner and farmer? Is that's really what it's all about? Making sure the food is shared with all? Or making sure the food is shared with those that are along with their agenda? I mean, didn't they just starve out a bunch of people in India because they brought their version of the COVID passport to the people of India, and there was a glitch in their system? So people that were literally living, hand to mouth, starved to death because they missed their month's ration of rice and food while they were working out the kinks in their system. Because that's what they always do, right? They bring this oppression to the poorest people. See, you're moving into the Hunger Games, right? Because I always sit there and said, wait a minute, how will they have all this modern technology, all these modern machines? There's a way to make a landscape, into an illusion, all this modern weaponry. But the people are living in mud huts, like the outcast of an English movie, set in the 1500s.
Within equitable investments, particularly in education and reskilling. And it also implies we come up with a new framework to regulate data ownership, intellectual property and competition in the fourth industrial revolution. This requires public-private cooperation. So, to the participants of this World Knowledge Forum, my message is this. It is very important to embrace the fourth industrial revolution and its technology, as it will determine our future prosperity like nothing else.
Thank you, Dr. Schwab. I absolutely agree on the fact that current COVID-19 truly enhanced and accelerated the era of fourth industrial revolution. And this fact naturally leads into my next question, which is, what type of leadership is required for international corporations to overcome global challenges such as COVID-19, the US-China conflicts, and so on?
In the short term, we are likely to see an acceleration of economic deglobalization, a trend which is apparent. Less goods will be produced and traded globally. COVID-19 has caused a disruption, as we all know, in global supply chains. Companies will try and source more products from neighboring or nearby countries to ensure a greater supply chain resilience.
Isn't that what they were talking about when they have that, they want that highway that runs from Canada right to Mexico? There was that trade act that, I can't think of the guy's name, that one dude that Moore that sits up in Canada, who is, strongly wants everyone to call him chief. I can't think of his name. But he did a video where he shows that Canada is under the control of the United States, and they did this by way of a trade agreement that was passed in like 2016 or 17.
In case of future disruptions. And indirectly, as you mentioned, we are also seeing a negative impact of COVID-19 on global political and economic relations. COVID-19 has not been good for US-China relations, leading to a worsening of what we call the new Cold War. This will have...
Did you hear that? I'm sorry. Did you hear that? Worsening of what they call the new Cold War? I'm sorry. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, Republicans, Democrats. Why aren't you talking about this? Oh my gosh, are you bought and paid for? Had your global masses not allowed you to come out and say this yet?
Long-term consequences on global economic cooperation, since companies will very often now emphasize resilience over costs. With China having become in the past the workshop of the world, this reshoring which will happen over the next years will lead to major disruptions, particularly...
Did you hear that? China will become the past, the workshop of the world? Or is he saying China is now coming out of its past, the workshop of the world? See, that's why I wanted English subtitles.
Affecting Korea. For Korea, the combination of the short-term and long-term trend means it will be more important than before to invest in relations, to invest in facilities in all parts of the world, including other parts of the emerging Asia, Europe, and the Americas. No company...
Now that makes you wonder, right? When Biden was doing that whole running for president, what did he say to the black folks? Oh, blacks and Mexicans, y'all need to come together and work together. Huh. I wonder why.
Country can rely on production only in one part of the world. We must avoid also that this new Cold War escalates. We have too many shared interests to allow the global system to disintegrate. Two other aspects of globalization, environmental and digital globalization, are in fact on the rise. And the COVID crisis has shown that when it concerns public health, we are globally connected as well. On all these fronts, collaboration is crucial, and I'm thinking particularly of vaccines, which we...
I'm calling BS because I tell you, I still think, it was George Bush Sr. I think his plan is the plan they're going with. The thing that will unite the whole world is a force from without that will come, that will unite the world within. This is all good talk, good talk, but I don't think that's what's going to work. It was going to make everyone's lives a living hell until these scientific dictators, are overthrown by the militaries of the world. But those militaries of the world are just a setup for facing off with what comes from without.
We urgently need so well and distributed on a global level. Physically, we still can close borders, but virtually, we continue to see ideas, intellectual property, digital goods and services, cyber viruses, unfortunately, and so are many other things spread everywhere. The fact that I'm speaking to you now from Geneva, I think is a perfect example. One of the consequences of COVID was that we all became more defensive and therefore more egoistic and more nationalistic. But in the end, we share a common fate as a planet and as people who live on it. The right response is to collaborate and to coordinate internationally, so we can address the global challenges posed by climate change and COVID-19 and also continue to use trade as a force for good.
The world not Tesla and sending his SpaceX rockets into outer space. It's surprising that Elon Musk still has time for his many ambitious side hustles. His latest bit on the side, Neuralink, has flown under the radar for the past few years, but it's now captivating the world's attention for a reason that's as intriguing as it is scary. Musk suggests that Neuralink will facilitate his mission to merge humans with artificial intelligence and subsequently save the human race from AI. Most of Musk's businesses run off the backbone of forward-thinking technology, but one piece of tech that Musk openly fears is AI. He firmly believes that artificial intelligence is the biggest threat to the human race, and that advancements in its technology is a dangerous game for us all to be playing. It sounds a little far-fetched to think that AI could literally wipe out life as we know it, but Musk isn't alone in his worries. In its current narrow form, AI can already outperform humans at literally any mental task, from solving equations to playing chess. But if we were to unleash its full potential and develop AI into a wide form of intelligence, it could and would outperform humans in every way imaginable, especially if we partner it up with robotics. Musk sees only one way of escaping the impending doom of an AI-facilitated human extinction, and that is to somehow merge our own intelligence with machine intelligence. Without realizing, we are all already somewhat merged with machine intelligence by merely owning a smartphone and having access to the internet. With the World Wide Web at our fingertips, we are countless times smarter than without. The only limitation that we have is speed. Searching for information using the internet is slow in the way that we have to find, read, and process before we can relay any information back out. All of this takes time. The goal of Neuralink is to make this connection between man and machine seamless. And the best way to do that is to physically merge the two together using a microchip brain implant. So what exactly is this first-gen brain implant? Dubbed the N1, the very first Neuralink implant is a tiny 4x4mm square chip that will be directly implanted into the brain. Attached to the chip are tiny wires that are 10 times thinner than a human hair, which coincidentally is about the same thickness as a neuron. The threads are embedded into essential parts of the brain, where they can decipher messages that are transmitted between neurons. The threads then relay that information back to the chip, where it records the impulses, evaluates the data, and then stimulates its own responses. The chip and wires not only read the information that the brain communicates, but also inputs information back into the brain as well. A single Neuralink chip will be able to connect and communicate with 1,000 different brain cells, and an individual will be able to house as many as 10 implants, totaling 10,000 connections. Testing so far of the N1 chip has been limited, but a restricted version with just 256 electrodes did see human patients controlling computer cursors, speech synthesizers, and robotic limbs with nothing but the power of their mind. Currently, the best FDA-approved brain implant has just 10 connections. So with this in mind, it's clear that the potential of Neuralink's chip is pretty much unrivaled. You'd think that the installation of such a device would be really complicated, dangerous, and invasive. But Musk has been very clear that the installation of Neuralink chips will be as straightforward as laser eye surgery. In the early stages, the installation of the chip will be done by the hand of a brain surgeon. But eventually, the entire procedure will be machine-operated. Neuralink are putting as much effort into the design and development of their robotic surgical device as the chips and wires themselves. Musk says that it will be able to undertake the procedure more intelligently and accurately than any human could, so it's the obvious route to go down. For the time being, the scope for Neuralink's technology will be to help those with physical and mental disabilities, used to help paraplegics with movement, amputees control artificial limbs, and those with memory loss reform connections. As the Neuralink N1 chip develops and gets smarter though, the possibilities get far more interesting. I'm sure Mr. Musk is over the moon that his tech can and most likely will help those with disabilities. But I think it's the more out there possibilities of merging humans with AI that really gets his juices flowing. In the distant, or maybe not so distant future, Musk sees Neuralink's AI chips being installed along the same lines as plastic surgery, as in it will be an optional surgery that some people get done, but it won't be absolutely mandatory. Although he also says that if everybody around you has the brain power of a quantum computer, then you will probably be tempted to get the procedure done yourself, especially if you plan on competing for jobs and keeping up with conversations. The possibilities of Neuralink's AI implants are endless, and that's not a figure of speech. AI's knowledge literally has no endpoint, because it's forever learning, working things out, and becoming better, all at a rate that we can't even comprehend. To paint a picture for you, with the help of Neuralink, you'll be able to do everything that your computer or smartphone can, but directly through thought. If you need to answer a question, your brain will just know it, because it has untapped access to the internet, just like how you currently have untapped access to your own knowledge. With Neuralink, you'll automatically know everything that you'd usually need to ask without even having to pop the question. Date, time, weather, geographical location, Brad Pitt's height in inches, anything. But Neuralink is not all about information. It's also about interaction and communication. Because the embedded AI can wirelessly transmit electrode signals, users will essentially be able to communicate with other computers and chip-wearing people with mind power alone. This communication will be almost instant, as it would have zero of the physical restraints that we currently have attached to speaking and typing. Think of it like pinging a thought into somebody else's Dropbox, but faster. Neuralink essentially turns you into a living, breathing Alexa that can control pretty much anything with an internet connection. Video games, drones, cars, all powered through thought. Musk's mission to merge humans with AI is a pretty crazy concept to wrap your head around, but the speed and direction that Neuralink is moving makes it one with genuine possibility. In the immediate future, the technology will most likely benefit the lives of countless people. But who knows how intelligent these chips will really get? I find it strange that Musk is fearful of a computer-based AI, but sees no problem with a human-based system. I can see hacking, bugs, and weaponization being a genuine issue of having a population of cyborgs. But hopefully, with the help of AI, we will be smart enough to figure all that out at a later date. The first human testing of the full...
I mean, isn't that what happened in some of these anime shows? Where people are transhumans? Walking robots with biological parts still. They get killed when a virus is sent to them and they can't get the virus out, right? But also, doesn't this remind you of Lex Will's videos on the breakdown of the Book of Jashir and the scrambling of the speech and what it did to the brain? It's like they're trying to undo it.